Welcome, everyone. I'm Diane with EdWeb, and it's my honor to introduce our presentation today with the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. I'm here with Kathy Metcalf, Vice President of Education for the Society, and our honored guest, Medal of Honor recipient Sal Giunta, who received the medal for his service in the U.S. Army in Afghanistan. Thank you all for attending, and Kathy, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thanks, Diane, and hello, everyone. It's a privilege to be here with you today, and most of all, it's a privilege to be here to chat with my friend Sal. I have had the privilege of knowing Sal since just right after he received that medal, and so getting to do this today is wonderful. We're doing things a little differently today with everyone operating from home. As you can see, we're in home situations here, and usually we start with a poll to find out which teachers are joining us with their classrooms. We are not going to run that poll today because I presume most of you are operating independently. And if you want to tell us as you're doing where you're from, and if you also want to throw up whether you're a teacher and whether you have kids with you, that would be helpful for us as an audience. I'm going to assume right off the top that those of you who are with us today already know the story of Sal's Medal of Honor citation, that he was awarded the Medal of Honor for actions in the Korangal Valley in Afghanistan in October of 2007. And that story is available not only in Sal's book, which is entitled Living with Honor, a memoir, and Sal wrote it with Joe Layden. It was published by Simon & Schuster. The date is 2012, if you guys want to get that for yourselves. And also, we have a video up on Vimeo. So you can Google Sal Giunta Vimeo, and it will be right there. It's the 14-minute version if you need the whole story. I don't like to ask Medal of Honor recipients to recount that day. And Sal, as you know, if you want to tell anything about it in the course of our questions today, you feel free. But I think that what we're really here for today is to find out what character you were instilled with that helped you do what you had to do on the day that you were doing it, and how your life has been affected by the Medal of Honor. So we have a bunch of questions, and unless you want to start with a few words, I'm ready to get started with some questions.
Go for it, Kathy. I'm with you.
Okay, here we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm starting with the questions that all of you sent in ahead of time. We'll still be looking at what you're sending in during the day as well. We only have an hour, and so we're going to plow through as many as we can, keeping in mind that we really want to address what works for teachers to present the Medal of Honor character program and stories like Sal's to students. So one of the first questions that we got is, what life lesson have you learned that you wish you had known when you were in elementary school?
For me, I think it is perseverance is key. Too often, I think in my life growing up, I thought once I didn't do something right, or once it had passed me by, it was gone forever. And I think so often these life lessons are just that. They're life lessons. And so by revisiting what we know, what we've learned, and trying to do things that we've already done better than we previously did, you only become a better person in the end. And hopefully we all live these long and prosperous lives. But so often the key teachings have happened to us at that sub 18-year-old and life level, when people were hand feeding us information, and maybe we grasped it or we didn't grasp it the appropriate way. So for me, perseverance, I think that's it. There's another Medal of Honor recipient, I believe it's Sammy Davis, Kathy, that says, it's not over until you quit trying. And I love that quote, because it's not. I mean, whatever it is, whether it's in school or in life, as long as you continue to readdress the situation and try to make it better, it's not over until you say, I'm done. I'm content or happy with the outcome.
Great, thank you. And that lines up, Sammy's quote as well, lines up with the 6 character values that the character development program lists, would be with commitment, but every school uses their own version of it, and perseverance is certainly that as well. So great reference to Sammy's quote too. Middle school, Stephen Austin Middle School, sent in the question about who was your inspiration when you were a young man. Did you have anybody in particular who inspired you?
Yeah, I grew up in Cedar Rapids.
You're still a young man.
Yeah. So, in Cedar Rapids, it's a city of about 120,000 folks, second largest city in Iowa. And for me growing up to see the sports figures for there is no professional sports team in Iowa, so it's the Bulls, it's the Cubs, and when I was young, Michael Jordan, well, he was and still is the man, and so I always thought, oh man, to see all the things that he does, um, really intrigued me. And then as I got a little older, I kind of moved away from the sports figure being my idol, knowing that I'm 5'9" and I probably wasn't going to get any taller. Basketball's not really my game. And looking at people that make these huge impacts, and not because they've been given the reins to drive to drive a business or different opportunities or people to follow them, but how they instill confidence, and to see how that affects the community. Cedar Rapids is a pretty, I mean, all things considered, America is very affluent. It's a first world country, but Cedar Rapids, Iowa is as well. And to see people go out of their way to engage and help folks really kind of stood out to me. I think ultimately the reason why I joined the military, is because of what I saw and how I was inspired by the reaction to September 11th, 2001. I was a junior in high school, and to see first responders and everyday citizens come from their office buildings to just do whatever they can to assist and rebuild and comfort those around them. That became the drive for me to join the military. I think the people that I look up to has continued to evolve. Again, going back to another Medal of Honor recipient, your father, Kathy, um,
Thank you.
stormed the beaches of Normandy, and to take me under his wing like his little brother, even though he's older than my grandfather, and help figure out what's right and what's wrong. I mean, he's been instrumental in these last 10 years of my life, because of what he instilled in me just upon meeting him, even that first time.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Sal. That made my day. That's for sure. Um, did you travel much before? I'm going off the list of questions for a minute here. Did you travel much before you got into the service?
I did not. I'd been to Iowa and every state that touches Iowa. Um, so no, I think in the last 10 years, I've been to every state in the United States within the last 10 years, which is pretty neat. And then being in the military, I had the opportunity to meet folks from all over. I was looking at the list of messages come up on the side and everyone saying where they're from. And I saw Chula Vista. I see, Albuquerque, New Mexico. I got buddies in darn near about every city in the United States. And so it's neat to see folks from around the United States join in on this.
Well, and that's actually why I asked, because I loved your comments about what it was like growing up in Iowa, and then to have this experience of since having been all over the world. It's probably given you, in spite of what we all see on TV all the time, given you a much broader understanding of the nature of America as a whole since you were awarded the medal.
Absolutely. I think I've been to 56 countries in the world now, and I did all 50 states. And I can't say I've been everywhere, obviously, in the United States, but I've had an opportunity to see so much. And what is so amazing is the people and how diverse they are, but how similar they all are from the first world to the third world, and what drives them to continue to be better or engage just in life. It's it's probably one of the greatest privileges I have is to interact with on a global scale.
To that end, one of our questions that came in ahead of time actually came in from a middle school. And I think the question was sort of intended for toward a question about probably what it was like to face potentially PTS, which of course you deal with in your book. You talk about that, but it says, how do you adapt, improvise, and overcome everyday civilian life? But I want to twist this question a little bit, because I know that since you were awarded the Medal of Honor, your life is not everyday civilian life. And I bet that the students and viewers would like to hear a little bit about what it's like to have to wear that Medal of Honor.
It has been a huge change in my life. I think we all go through transitions. from being in school to being a teacher, as so many are. For me, going into the military was a huge change. I kind of considered myself pretty cool, I guess, at 18 years old. And then I showed up to Vicenza, Italy, in a foreign country, and I met all these 18 to 23-year-olds in the 173rd. And I saw that I better try my hardest to keep up with my peers, to keep up with the pack. And it really set my life on a different trajectory. After the military, that transition, I don't think it can ever be easy. I think it's such a drastic change, but how you adapt to that change and how you come out on the other side is so meaningful. And this medal changed how I respond. I know for a fact that I am not the guy you're looking for, or the person. They are bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they're more resilient, they're more dedicated, and they're out there working right now. And so to be able to speak about people that are so much better than I am and so much more engaged than I am, it forces me to put on my A game. I mean, I'm sitting in my office at home. I haven't dressed up in, I don't know, weeks. And to put on a jacket and tie and pants and stand here, it's not because I want to. It's because I know it's so important on what I represent. I think by the way to lead is not say, hey, go do this. This is how you should do things. This will make things better. It's to say, hey, follow me. And that's leading by example. And I think for me to transition into civilian life, I'm trying to pick up the torch the best I can. I'm trying to lead by example the best I can, because I know if I do it the right way, people will follow. And so to look at post-traumatic stress, I think there's so much that I don't know if it ever goes away. I think it can lessen. I think it can become worse as well, depending upon the situation and how we think about it or about what we're doing in our life. Looking at this time we're in right now, and we're social distancing, but we don't have to be in complete isolation. And what a great time to be able to reach out to peers and friends and old coworkers and possibly new coworkers, but just engage as people. I mean, even myself, I've never FaceTime my folks so much in my entire life than I have in the last couple of weeks, just because we can. And because we can, we should, I think, especially when it's something that involves something so positive and good for those around us.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that answers your question, Kathy.
Well, it's kind of a conversation. So we touched on a lot of things. And I noticed, too, that as the chats are coming in on the side, that you've got a lot of people who are saying hello and who have known you from various places. So I think that's really cool that this is an opportunity to indeed engage with people when, while I know you and I would probably much rather be, standing in the auditorium at Guernsey High School again in Wyoming. Hi, guys. I hope you're with us. But in person, but this lets us reach all across the country. So that's pretty cool. And thank you for doing that. To go back to some questions, you were just talking about leadership, and one of the schools wrote in, how did you and the people you served with become a real team? And they put the word team in quotation marks. Do you have any thoughts about, you talked a little about leadership. What about the teamwork?
I think it comes teamwork for us. The strongest metals are forged in the hottest fires. Without something that bonds you together, it is hard to ever hold that structure. And so for us in the military, for me and my experience, was commitment. And it was knowing that things were going to be tough and things were going to be extraordinarily uncomfortable, but you were going to be there and I was going to be there. And if you ever needed something, I'd be there for you, and vice versa. Faith. I think not just commitment, but faith, and thinking that tomorrow's another chance, another day, that this is all bigger than just us. It's not the I's and the me's, but it's the we's and the us. And you got to have faith and trust and commitment in one another. And once you have that, the team almost forms itself, because it starts being not necessarily the same people, but like-minded people that you don't need to ask to be on your team. It's just a given that they're on your team. And then direction. A team's just hanging out. You can be a basketball team, but if you're standing on a basketball court, what's that do for you? You need to have direction. The goal is to win, to achieve something, to do something for others. And our teams were led by incredible leaders that always had something for us to do. And whenever there was something that we didn't have, there was nothing that we needed to do, they created something for us to do to continue to foster that teamwork, that motivation, that ability to affect positive change. I'm 35 years old now, and I'm back at school, and well, I'm online school, but a senior at Colorado State, and we form all these different teams, and to let people speak their minds, to let people be part of that team as well. It's not just giving them direction and telling them to execute. It's giving them a voice in how things are achieved. And that fosters that teamwork because it fosters trust. Not everyone has the same set of skills. And by being able to have a diverse team, you can engage different sets of skills that can allow you to have so many different subject matter experts on whatever you're trying to accomplish without the individual or personal knowledge to do it yourself. I mean, that's what makes a team so strong.
Great answer on that. Thank you so much. This next question, actually, I think in some ways you just answered. Irvington High School asked, what was your decision to assist your fellow soldier instinctual? I'm sure they're referring to when you went to retrieve Brendan from being carried away. They said, was it instinctual or was it a decision you had to make on the spot? Did you have to stop and think about it? Did you just go?
It absolutely is instinctual. I think the failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And so although war is chaos and different things will happen, we did everything prior to being in that situation to prepare for that situation or a like situation. And when you stop thinking about it, I think it was, it might have been a Truman quote. And he said, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who receives the credit. That's it. When you're part of a team, it's not what I did. It's what we have always done. And so when a certain circumstance like that comes up, it's not my life or death. It's our life and death. And you don't need to think about what you're going to do. You're going to go out there for the greater good, and the greater good is always those around you. I truly, 8 years in the Army, all with the 173rd Sky Soldiers. I couldn't have been around a better group of folks. And I think that's true across the services and across the different jobs. You just form that commitment to each other, no matter what it is you will do. And it doesn't take, how should this work out? I mean, I think there's some great thinkers in the world. I've never proven to be one of the deepest thinkers. I tend to be more of a man of action. But in a time of conflict, we need people of action. And so it was instinctual. War is not about hate. It's not about your dislike for the other side. It's about love. It's about care. It's about compassion. It's about what you're doing is protecting those that are behind. You're protecting a way of life. You don't go to far off lands because home isn't safe. And that's our teachers. That's our police officers. That's our firefighters. That's those in the public service. That's those that are out there working a business job 9 to 5 and giving of their time to their church group or to a homeless shelter, to Goodwill. It's all that.
You mentioned both in your answer just now and also in your video, you talk about how you had been trained. And since you mentioned my dad earlier, he actually joined the service in 1940 and did not see combat until almost a year and a half later. And so he had been in intensive training and then was joined well into World War II by people who had only been in training for sometimes as little as 2 to 4 weeks. And the difference in developing that instinct that you're talking about seemed really significant. And I think that your comment about failure to prepare is preparing to fail, that preparation helps create that instinct to respond the way you did.
I think when you care so much, right? And like I said in how you choose to spend your time. You don't have to decide if you're going to volunteer unless you have multiple places you're going to volunteer. You know you're going to do it. It's just going to happen, and how you do it is the only thing that requires the thought.
So, related topic, some of our viewers want to know, were the soldiers that you aided able to make a full recovery and go home? I know this is kind of a tough question. And those who did make it back and recovered, have they had anything in particular to say to you afterwards? Do you stay in touch?
I think one of the great things about a team is, especially a high functioning team, is you can't lose touch. Whether you don't speak for a year or 2 years, the second you see them again, you just pick up right where you left off. And I think through all this, it has bonded us together. We all did what we did for other reasons, but now that we can talk about it, I think it strengthens our bond because of what we've experienced yet again in life as we have children and as we have families and as we try to continue to be high achievers in life. As far as that night, Brennan died in surgery. Mendoza died on the battlefield. And so for those guys, no. It is a difficult thing for me. I think if there was one thing for me to admit is that I do and probably will have survivor's guilt because my life has been so privileged because of everything they've sacrificed. And they didn't know what they were going to sacrifice when they did, but I know what they sacrificed because of what I have. And to acknowledge that really keeps me motivated and keeps me going in a direction larger than myself because it has to be. It's the only thing that makes it feel tolerable.
And you know, your recognition of them validates their sacrifice every time you mention it. And I admire that so much. That's part of what's so important about what you do, especially given the opportunity that you have wearing that medal to talk to people. You know, too often, so many of our veterans come home and don't have a chance to go talk. And thank you for getting out there and doing that, especially when it's hard. We have a question that says, some students struggle digging into problems and persevering with grit, all the words we've been talking about, and determination. Are there any ways that you would suggest, perhaps aside from necessarily having to go through what you went through in the Army, that you would encourage students to help develop that determination?
So for me, I think so many people in the group message have a better answer than myself. I think when I was younger, I didn't understand grit. I accepted failure. I don't want to say just went with the flow, but I was there to kind of have fun and I was just moving through life only until I faced true adversity and saw the cost of failure. And it wasn't a letter grade. It wasn't my folks being unhappy about me, sad to say. It had to be something bigger for me to understand what it took to show grit, to show resiliency. And so I wish I had a better answer for that, but I know it didn't come to me until, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 years old. It should have came a lot sooner, but I have a tendency to learn a lesson. I learn a lot better the hard way, I guess.
Well, I can say from being both a parent and being a teacher for a lot of years that, and even looking at myself, there are a lot of us who learn lessons the hard way. So thank goodness most of us don't have to go through as hard a way to learn them as you did. Are there any qualities that you feel students can achieve to ready themselves to act and to serve? So to obviously not necessarily serve specifically in the military, but service for each other?
Absolutely. We talk about what it means to be a citizen. Being a citizen is caring for other people, seeing the likeness and then based off of location, but care and compassion. When you put other people's needs in front of your own, it becomes one of those trained instinctual responses, and you don't have to think about what you need to do. It comes to you on what you need to do because you're focused on addressing other people's needs or even shortcomings. I mean, there's so many folks that it doesn't take putting on a uniform and wearing camouflage and carrying a gun to be in service to your fellow people. It just takes caring about them and using your efforts to better their situation. And that comes in so many different ways. It can happen as easy as holding the door open for someone at a store. It can also be a life of service. But there's no point where it's not enough. It's just interacting as you put it, when you put other people's first. There's an endless supply of opportunities to be of service, and I think the more you do it, the more opportunities you see along the way.
Well said. Endless supply of opportunities to help other people. So many of the questions that we got are things like, what advice do you have for students that can help them to overcome difficult situations? And what core values would you recommend to teens who are struggling with poverty and trauma in their lives? I think we're kind of backing into these questions because in some respects, I think you just answered that. But do you have any thoughts about those who are already dealing with kinds of difficulties, perhaps especially in the face of pandemic?
It is so much. I don't. All I can say is my opinion. It's about perseverance. It's about that faith that tomorrow things will be better, and if not tomorrow, maybe the next day. I think the only guarantee that we have at this point is that the sun will come up again tomorrow, and as will the moon, and the earth will continue to spin. And it's what we do with that time and how we engage with that time. And 15 months of combat for me in 1, 2, or 27 months in my life. I remember sitting there laying on the ground in the dirt because we don't have tents, and we'd had no more food, and we didn't have any water. We had maybe half the ammo we should have had, and I'm laying there, and there's only 7 other folks next to me, just throwing myself a pity party, right? I can't think of anything that's good about life or things, and people didn't understand war. That's all I could think about. And in Afghanistan, where there is no power, you see a million stars. There's millions and millions of stars. We rarely see them in today's world that we live in. And you could see these satellites going around, and you could see planes traveling. And I remember thinking about those people on a plane are probably getting served a drink and a meal right now, and they can't even fathom what they're flying over. And it wasn't important, though, that they fathom what they were flying over. It was the fact that I knew that someday, at some point, things were going to change for me as well. And having that perspective on life, not that I need to fly over Afghanistan in a plane, but the perspective on life that we're all taking different paths in this world. And some paths are no doubtably far harder than others. And it's not their fault that it's the path they're on right now. And there are some that have everything in the world going for them, and they choose drugs, and it becomes an addiction, and it overcomes them. There's people that have had easy paths that made their easy path very hard. It's about how we continue to try to make the path better for us and those around us that I think you can find motivation in. And things get better. They do, especially you can only be at the bottom of the barrel right once, and maybe you say this is the bottom of the barrel and things get worse. Well, you found out you weren't at the bottom of the barrel before, right? Because you got lower. But the best thing about being at the bottom of the barrel is once you're truly there, the only place it can go is up, and things can only get better. And I think keeping that in mind should give some motivation.
So 35-year-old Sal, since you just said it, 35-year-old Sal can look back at, say, 17-year-old Sal, who, if he had been quarantined with his parents, what would you have told him from your perspective now?
I would have told him to shut his mouth. I tell you, I look back at so many things in life, and I think about how the way I addressed it was so wrong, or how I treated a situation was just inaccurate. And it was because of my understanding and my experiences led me to have that belief. And I think young Sal was a very motivated guy, but not always in the right direction. And so it can cause trouble. It can cause animosity and adversity in your life because of who you were. And I think this quarantine is it is a resilience test. It's a resilience test, not just on the teachers and adults, but on children. I mean, It's incredible. It's a resilience test on the entire world. And when we get through this, which we will, what we can say we learned from it is incredible. When I tell people I've lived, a year and a half, 2 years of my life without electricity, they say, "How?" you know, uh, 100 years ago, everyone did, right? It's not a thing. It's only become a thing because we've made it. But now we have so many new tools in our toolbox as resources to address it. And so to watch how we as a people grow from this pandemic and how we come out of it will be incredible. And to really watch the children, because they will have this experience now in their young lives to carry with them for the entirety of their lives, where heck, I couldn't have experienced anything like this till now.
You know, obviously very true. And you can look back, of course, in history and see other pandemics where they didn't have electricity, where they didn't have the news and the means to hear about it. And the same, of course, was true if you look back at historic things like the world event that prompted you to go into the service, which was, of course, 9/11. But no matter where you come into this world at a point in history, we all come in with specific characteristics and qualities. And you talk in your book about the motivated Sal that you were, and I think probably from what I've read, extremely independent and probably somewhat stubborn. But aren't those all qualities too that came into play, and depending on how you use them, are also good qualities? I know we have a tendency, when I read all these questions from teachers and from parents, and they're asking, how do I get my child or my students to respond in certain ways, that it's not that our students need to change, but they need to see how those qualities can best be put to use. And what do you remember any particular points along the way, boot camp, before you went to boot camp, while you were, like you said, looking up at the stars, when you were at the bottom of the barrel, when you found that the things that you were once criticized for, you have now made a really valuable part of who you are?
I think so. And you did say stubbornness. I think my wife would still agree. Um, that has always been something. I'm like, I don't really accept your answer. I'm just going to go do my own thing anyway. And there can be consequences for that in life. But I also think when you won't accept a negative situation or just roll over or make it someone else's problem, that stubbornness forces you to address something that maybe someone who's not as stubborn um, would say. And for me, um, in the military and in the airborne infantry, one of the first things I noticed was my folks, me growing up with both my parents, me coming from a good, stable home, me being able to go to, it's a public school, but it's a great public school, to grow up around people that care for me, ensured my protection and safety and my continued education. That was a rarity. In the airborne infantry group, and I didn't know that until I left home, and I saw that for myself, and I saw some of the characteristics and strengths that they had to hone throughout their years, and it really drew me to them, because then I think, going back to the team question, that's how the team can be made. Here's the deal: I'm capable of listening. I just don't always like the answer. Here's the deal: you're wildly motivated to change your position in life, and you're going to bring others with you in forming a team that way. Um, we all have amazing traits, and it's how we put them to use. I think that makes it matter, but more for, not necessarily for ourselves, but how we put them to use for others. If you're going to be stubborn, how can you make your stubbornness benefit others? If you're not going to accept the status quo, how can you change it for others to make it better? Right? We're not trying to just change things to make things different. We're trying to change them for the better, for the positive, for the greater good.
Absolutely. And that approach of changing things for the better good, really, stubbornness has that, the word has the negative connotation, but the quality is just determination, and how you direct it really is what works with that. So I guess the positive attitude, it would be determination, and when you learn to direct it, it helps. And you mentioned in your book that the people you want to thank at the in the epilogue, you thank, of course, your family and what a great brother and sister you have. So shout out to brother and sister if they're here. And but you also mentioned teachers. Do you have any particular recollections of your interactions with teachers that have stayed with you as you've been progressing into adulthood here?
I have a ton. I think I didn't grasp it when I was younger, but the amount of influence and engagement that a teacher has in a young person's life is wild, and how they're able to interact, engage, teach, mentor, um, help promote a greater tomorrow to 30 kids at a time who come from different backgrounds and different scenarios in life. I would say, like I've said before, I was a very motivated kid. I wouldn't say I was motivated to learn in class, but I was motivated to go to school because then I could be on the football team or the wrestling team, or I could be with my friends. And so to see how in a class of 30 people, how the teachers would engage with me to keep me drawn to the topic or the subject at hand. I can't think of any better leaders in the world than the teachers I've been fortunate enough to have in my life that have made me who I am. I mean, every day we are influenced by our environment, how we grew up, where we grew up, how we live our lives, who we include in our lives. And at that, what is it, 5 years old in kindergarten to 18 years old leaving high school, it is those teachers that become those mentors, because they have us in some of the best hours or worst hours of the day, depending upon how you want to look at it. Really that 9 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I think about I had an algebra teacher that was also my wrestling coach, and how that influence, he could make algebra the means to wrestle, right? And how that's not how I wanted to do it. I didn't want to have to do algebra so I could wrestle, but he made it that way. And it was not because he needed me on the wrestling team, but he wanted me to be successful and understand algebra. The amount of leverage in true leadership is insurmountable. I started a scholarship at my high school about 5 years ago. And the first thing I did when I walked back in those doors was see teachers that were my teachers and just tell them I'm sorry and thank you. You don't know the lessons you instilled in me that I still carry with me today. It's truly remarkable, the power of the teacher.
Well, that's a great shout out to teachers. Thank you for that. And you mentioned also recently that you have adopted part of the job of being second grade teacher, I believe.
Yeah, it's tough. To see my daughter, I mean, I am so fortunate and so blessed. She takes after her mother, and she wants to learn, but to make this transition into how she can engage one with her class via like a Zoom or a Skype type deal, and how she stays motivated. At 8 years old, the most important thing in my life were my friends and having fun, and to see how she engages with us every day and then still stays motivated to do school. I mean, I'm like a master of gym class. I don't want to brag or anything, but that's more my topic. And to think about how I'm talking to my daughter, who's one person, and how my teachers spoke to us when there's 30 of us in the classroom and somehow got us through it is incredible.
Yeah, wearing somebody else's boots really gets your attention, huh?
Yeah.
We have probably from a teacher here, we have a question that wants to know for students who have found themselves in juvenile detention, do you have any suggestions on how they can help come back from some obviously really major mistakes as opposed to just those ordinary kids do dumb things occasionally mistakes?
Kids do dumb things. I think, one thing that we're very blessed in America, and hindered at times, but we are quick to forget. Records do tend to stick around longer than memories, but by proving yourself, by not saying this is what defines me, but by saying what I will continue to achieve will define me, who I surround myself with in the future decisions. And that stuff doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a month. It doesn't happen in a year. And sometimes on paper, it will never change. But how you present yourself can change at any given moment, right? It is one of those ideas of putting your best foot forward, or first impressions. And you can't take back some of these serious negative things on a record, but you can show not that you've been rehabilitated, but you are a different person than that one single story tells. There was this, I watched it on YouTube, and I think it was called The Single Story. And it was about how no one single story can define folks. It's not, no one is one story. No one is one moment in time. We're all greater than that. And especially when it's a negative one. This is a moment in time for me. I spent 8 years in the military, and I did a lot of things with a lot of amazing people. This recognition is truly a moment in time, and it's what we choose to do at that moment in time. I think sometimes even today, I think about it, and I struggle how I'm going to be the right person for this. But I think that struggle is what makes it an opportunity to know that it's not given every day, and it's only what we make of it will be what is made of it.
That is such a great piece of insight to the Medal of Honor. My dad was almost 93 when he passed away. And I remember at the time my son saying to me, please make sure at Grandpa's funeral that the people who talk don't reduce him to only the Medal of Honor. Not reducing the Medal of Honor in that regard, but rather that it was, as you said, a moment in time. And he was so much more than that. One of the school districts wrote in and said, after completing your deployment in Afghanistan, did you feel different, and did people see you differently? I think that ties into this question of the moment in time versus the rest of your life. Do you find people see you differently, and do you feel differently about yourself?
No, I mean, I have different experiences. I think new relationships and new people that I meet definitely treat me differently. On a normal day, I don't put this medal on, and I don't introduce myself as Medal of Honor recipient. I'm just Sal. Heck, I'm a senior at Colorado State, and in class, I don't think most of those 22, 23-year-old kids know who I am, other than I'm Sal. I'm older than they are, and let's get to learn. Um, when I came back, I think that's the greatest thing about friends. They know who you are. This hasn't changed. I'm still me. I still get to be me. This gives me an opportunity, a chance to engage at a higher level than I normally would. But when we came back, that was just a job. I raised my hand. I did not get told to go do this. I raised my hand and said, I'm willing to do whatever is necessary to make tomorrow better than today. When we came back, I think that transition at first was hard, but also because we left a foreign country and returned to a foreign country. I was stationed in Italy. Awesome place to be stationed. But there's no one waving American flags. And when you go out, no one cares where you just came from. They're not going to thank you for your service. You didn't do anything for them. But then again, I never set out to do anything for them. I set out to do something for me that makes me feel good with my own position. I think as time goes on, I'm working with who I am still. But I don't think my wife doesn't think anything different of me. I mean, I'm still going to have to go pick up dog poop this week. I'm still going to have to take out the trash. I don't have any, my kids don't cut me any extra slack because they just saw me walk down into the office with a suit and tie on. I just get to be dad. And I think that is the best that I can be, is exactly who I'm supposed to be, not who people want to perceive me to be.
Oh, absolutely. I think I didn't realize until I don't know, until the 50th anniversary of Normandy, probably, that the normal that I grew up with was not the usual normal. And you now have two kids, and what is their normal is not going to be most people's normal, even though you introduce yourself as just Sal. Is there anything that comes to mind that in your relationship with them, do you hear the word hero at all outside the usual dad hero?
No, not, I mean, not with them, right? I think because we are such a tight knit, I get together with a lot of my buddies, and I consider them all my children's uncles. They are part of the reason why I get to grow into this man that I am today. I tell my kids, these are the crazy uncles. You don't always have to listen to them. You can look at them, but if they tell you to do something that doesn't necessarily, they don't count as like an authority figure. So come back and check with me. I think they see different things now. If there was an event on TV, or my kids there for a while thought that when I put on a suit and tie, I'm going to grab a suitcase and I'm not going to come back. That means they get to sleep in the bed with mom, but it doesn't. We're all just trying to be the best people we can be. And I think to our family, I mean, the best husband I can be, the best father I can be is my priorities here in this house. Hero status has never been a desired one for me.
I think for you and most of your buddies, it's not. One of our teachers asked, since you mentioned the challenges of working from the new homeschool approach with your daughter and recognizing what teachers are going through, do you have any advice for, say, high school students who are having to adjust to suddenly being separated from all those great friends and trying to do this from home?
I tip my hat, right? This to see a graduating class in high school, especially, no prom, no graduation. I know they told us. I mean, it doesn't really matter for me, but we're not going to have a graduation ceremony. I'm like, well, 35 years old. I kind of came back for an achievement, but it was my own personal achievement. But to look at the high school age folks and to see there are some things they're missing, but I think there's a lot they're gaining that no one else in the history of this world has been able to gain. That some of that is resiliency. I think with technology the way it is today, I challenge anyone to Zoom is free, right? I'm not trying to promote any platform, but you could call someone up just to show them a picture that you drew or whatever. I think it's very important in this time of social distancing to not isolate. We are creating that space between people, but it doesn't have to come at the cost of a relationship. I can't even imagine. It's so new, and it's something that I never experienced. For me to give advice is very difficult on this topic, but I know there's lessons to be learned, and as long as we learn them, then we can make all this worth it in the end.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about an experience that you had that very few people ever get, and that's you're actually being awarded the Medal of Honor, because I know there are a lot of people out there who are curious about the experience, and they'd probably like to hear about your friends greeting you on the bus, which I just read about in your book. By the way, someone on the chat has asked to reiterate about the book, and it's entitled Living with Honor, a Memoir, and it's by Sal Giunta with Joe Layden, Simon & Schuster, 2012. So there's the link up on the side there. Thank you for the link. You say in the book that the craziness began on September 9th, 2010. That was when you were well past your Medal of Honor action. I love the phrase, the craziness began. That was when you got a call from the White House. Does it still feel like craziness?
It does, because I think, we don't do things for recognition. We did things because they needed to get done. If we didn't do them, who would do them? And to be recognized from the office of the president, from Congress, from really your peers that were there, because it all starts with them explaining what had happened. And to think that you are worthy of this is crazy. It seems still very surreal. Like I said earlier, I'm not the guy. I'm not the person you're looking for. There are so many out there that have done so many incredible things that haven't been talked about, that haven't been recognized. But it doesn't change the fact that they achieved so many great things that would otherwise not be done without them. You mentioned when I got off the bus in DC, I got beat up. I really did. That's how my buddies congratulate you. It's your birthday. Hey, we're gonna fight you now. And it's never like 1-on-1. That's not how you get beat up on your birthday. It's like 20-1. And they just congratulated me, and we were able to celebrate. We were able to be proud of what we had accomplished, because nothing I did I ever did. we have done everything. In the military, you don't even go to the restroom alone. There's always someone there with you. And so to say, I did this or I accomplished that would be an incorrect statement. It has always been the we's and the I's. To serve in the military in the time frame that I did, and I firmly believe still today, it is the men and women that went through and experienced Vietnam that ensured that we were welcomed home more than appropriately, more than adequately. Not everyone makes that transition positively, but the people were there and the help is available. And so to say, hey, we weren't just 8 guys or 35 guys walking the Hindu Kush in Afghanistan, and no one cares what we did, to be recognized on that stage really brought us all up. And I think that is what ties us together still today. Not that I have this medal, but that we accomplished something. And now look at all the other great things we have to accomplish. I got an 8-year-old great thing, Lily, and a 4-year-old great thing, Vincent, and life is good. And now it's about proving the other things we're capable of achieving in life, not just to ourselves, but that accountability amongst our peers.
I love that you talk about it's not just it's or me, it's we and us. And a Medal of Honor doesn't happen in a vacuum, perhaps more so than any of the other medals, because it does require the eyewitness of your peers. And that all of you Medal of Honor recipients are so outstanding about recognizing that that was indeed the case is invaluable. You mentioned the great things that are at your house. I like that too, because I refer to my grandkids as thing one and thing two. And someone has asked, and I know that you address it in your book because I've looked at that part of it, but someone's asked, what would you say if specifically your daughter decided to join the military? What would you have to say to her about that? And I think you could apply that to your son for that matter as well.
Absolutely. For true freedom, choice is key. And although it would be, I would try to steer her. I'd say maybe the airborne infantry isn't for you. I would never tell her that. I think service is important for everyone. And like I said originally, it's not about camouflage and guns. It's about care and compassion. And I will instill that in my children long before they turn 18 or have this opportunity. But if the desire is there, if this is what you want to do, I think that is what it takes. To be told to do something makes it somehow feel less meaningful, at least for me. But to choose to do something and actually accomplish something positive is what inspires and instills confidence. Um, I would absolutely say follow your heart, follow your dreams, do it. I think that's my folks. No one in my family served in the military, and I told my mom when I was 17 after September 11th, I believe on September 11th, 2001, I said, "Hey, I want to join the military," and she said, "Salvatore, absolutely not. You're 17 years old. You're a junior in high school. Graduate high school, and we'll go from there." And I thought, I graduate high school. I turn 18. I'm a man. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't have to ask you. I'll just tell you what I'm doing. And I think not that my parents ever said no, but I think it is very difficult for anyone to want their children to be in harm's way or to condone their children to be in harm's way. But I think that's what makes us all so special as individuals, is that we all choose our own path. And a path of service, I don't believe, by putting others first is a good path to be on, a good path to start on. Yeah, I think about it fairly often. I've had the opportunity to meet some of these great generals' children, right? 4-star generals, airborne infantry, ranger, special forces guys, and then I look at their son and I'm like, you went to college so you could come and do exactly what your father did, and you know the hardships. You've seen what this does. If anything, I was naive to the situation of what this commitment would mean. But seeing people that understand that commitment and still follow that path anyway, it motivates the heck out of me. It makes me think I need to do more.
I bet, though, you would probably encourage her to go to college first and then join if she were going to do that.
Knowledge is power, no matter how you look at it. Read a book, listen to a teacher, pursue pursue an art or craft online. I think that is a great benefit or a great strength to have, is to be a lifelong learner. I can honestly say I don't brag about too many things, but I've really met some of the greatest minds in the entire world, and not one of them can do everything. And so, that being a true statement, we should always branch out and pursue and engage new ways of learning and new things to learn, new perspectives to try to understand.
Oh, absolutely. And it doesn't all come through college. It comes through, as you said, life experience, the military, uh, reaching out and doing things for other people. Your book came out in 2012. It's 2020. You have some more chapters you might want to add?
I, I don't. I think the book for me was a chance for me to set the record straight. Too often I stand on stage by myself, and I can say it wasn't me, but the only people that can hear me are the people listening. And so that book was another platform to tell that story. When I was looking at the names come down and locations when we first began, I'm thinking about one of my great leaders, Eric Gallardo from Chula Vista, California. I think about Derek Grigo from Hesperia, California. I think about Caleb Casey from Tallahassee, Florida. I think about Caleb, Clary, Garrett Clary from Spokane, Washington. I mean, from all over the United States. That's what I want to do. It's not me, it's us. And no one asked them to write a book, but it's not my story, it's our story. So to tell that story, I'm going to put their names in bold black ink and make sure everyone knows who was responsible for this. And it wasn't me, it was us.
Well, thank you so much. We could do this for hours. We have probably 200 more questions here that we could answer, but we're just about out of time. Do you have any closing words that you would like to offer to our audience before you go? I think it was us is a great place to end, but I want to give you a last minute or two if you want it.
I think I always want another minute, Kathy. Again, this is us still. This is, we're talking about the situation we're in and why we're online and not in person. I think is a little disheartening, but to think that not everyone that's here online could have been here in person, I think we're just finding that next way to engage and to make sure that we are not isolated in our distancing. For so many of the teachers that are here, for so many of the military that are here, after this, I'll leave it with a challenge. I challenge you to reach out and talk to someone that you haven't talked to in a while. I challenge you to write that email. A phone call, I think, is better. FaceTime or whatever, where you can actually see someone. Make that engagement. Check on a buddy. Whether they're doing good or bad, it's worth knowing, and it's worth lighting that candle again, because we are all in this together. And when this ends, we could rekindle something that without this would have never otherwise happened. A relationship that wasn't going to blossom because we didn't have the time, or we didn't put in the effort. And so I challenge everyone on here to put in that effort and reach out. I don't care when it was from. Make the phone call awkwardly out of the blue, and then engage in life conversations, both positive and negative. It doesn't have to be about any one particular thing. It just has to be about your care for one another. So I'll leave you with that challenge. I appreciate everyone coming. But no one really cared what I had to say about 10 years ago. And ever since I had the chance to talk, I want to talk about us. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to see where you're from. I want to see what motivates you, what challenges you, what inspires you. I think your your knowledge and your perspective helps me talk the next time.
Thank you so much. As always, my friend, it was an honor talking with you. We'll turn it over to Diane to close out with the slides. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sal. That was amazing. And it was something that people really needed to hear, especially these days. Thank you, Kathy, and the Congressional Medal of Honor Society for helping us make this possible. And thanks to everyone who took the time to log in today, and hopefully share this with your students when the recording comes up. And we invite you to join our free community on edweb.net. You'll be able to watch past interviews, earn CE certificates, and you'll be notified about the next interview we do. That's edweb.net/CMOH. And please visit the Medal of Honor Character Development Program online that will let you access lesson plans, learn about other recipients, and much more.